GPT-5.6 Sol, Codex, and Claude Code are the three names getting thrown around in every best coding agent thread right now, and I ran all three head-to-head across cost, coding benchmarks, speed, context limits, and deployment. The biggest surprise in the data, the agent marketed as the fastest of the three only hits that speed on a separate paid tier, and its actual default speed is slower than Codex's standard mode. Let's start with the number that decides whether this thing is sustainable at scale. GPT 5.6 Sol runs on straight API pricing, $5 per million input tokens, $30 per million output tokens, and cached input drops to 50 cents. That's a real published rate you can plug into a cost calculator today. Codex and Claude Code don't give you that option. Codex doesn't publish a comparable per token rate for its agent at all. You're buying access through ChatGPT Plus at $20 a month, or Pro at $200 a month if you want full access. Claude Code is usage-based, with a Pro tier also starting at $20 a month, but enterprise teams report averaging $13 per developer per day on top of that. Here's where it gets concrete. On Artificial Analysis's Intelligence Index, GPT 5.6 Sol costs about $1.04 per task at its max setting. Run the math at scale. 100 coding tasks a month puts GPT 5.6 Sol at around $104 total. Compare that to a flat $20 a month subscription for Codex or Claude Code, and on the surface the subscription looks cheaper, until you remember that subscription comes with rate limits and the API route doesn't cap your throughput at all. GPT 5.6 Sol wins this test clean. It's the only one of the three with a transparent, published per token rate, and its per task cost undercuts Claude Code's daily average by a wide margin. That's roughly a third of what Claude Fable 5 costs at its own max setting, per task. My name is Brian, and I spend my week digging through pricing pages, model cards, and benchmark leaderboards so you don't have to click through 19 sources yourself to figure out which coding agent is actually worth paying for. Cost only matters if the model can actually do the job, so let's look at what these three score on the benchmarks people actually cite. On SWE Bench Verified, the test that grades models against real GitHub issues, GPT 5.6 Sol scores 96.2%. Codex, running GPT 5.6 Sol under the hood, scores 88% on the Pro variant of that same benchmark. Claude Code, paired with Opus 5, comes in at 80%. That's a 16-point spread from top to bottom on the single most cited coding benchmark in this comparison. One of the biggest problems I run into when using AI agents is turning their output into YouTube content I can actually use to market my product. That's why this video is sponsored by Subscriber, a tool that helps business owners connect their AI agents to YouTube and market their products without spending 10 hours every week creating content. You can connect Claude or ChatGPT directly to Subscriber. It then analyzes your business, website, and YouTube channel to help you create SEO-optimized video ideas, scripts, thumbnails, and even complete videos that actually match your brand. What I like most is that every week, Subscriber gives me a list of high-potential video ideas I can immediately execute, and it can even help edit videos for me, with or without my face, including videos like the one you're watching right now. It's easy to get started, and you can try Subscriber for free using the link in the description below. Now back to the video. On Terminal Bench 2.1, GPT 5.6 Sol scores 88.8% at base and 91.9% on its ultra setting. There's no published figure for Codex or Claude Code on this particular benchmark, so that one's a clean win by default. But GPT 5.6 Sol doesn't sweep everything. On Human Evil, Claude Code actually edges ahead at 92%, with Codex close behind at 90.2%. Overall, GPT 5.6 Sol wins this test. Two benchmarks, a 16-point and an uncontested lead, are hard to argue with, even though Claude Code takes the smaller, older test. That's a real, if narrow, win for Claude Code on that specific test. And it's worth noting because it's the only benchmark in this whole comparison where GPT 5.6 Sol doesn't come out on top. This is the test where the marketing gets ahead of the reality, so pay attention. At standard speed, GPT 5.6 Sol outputs 67 tokens per second according to Artificial Analysis. Codex, on its standard GPT 5.3 configuration, runs 65 to 70 tokens per second. Now flip on the fast modes and the story changes completely. Codex Spark hits 1,000 plus tokens per second, a 15 times jump over its own standard speed. GPT 5.6 Sol's ultrafast tier hits 750 tokens per second, a 14 times jump. Claude Code's fast mode, running on Opus 4.8, only gets you a 2.5x speed bump. Codex wins this test outright. It beats GPT 5.6 Sol on standard speed by a hair, and it beats it again on fast mode throughput, 1000 plus tokens per second against 750. If raw output speed is your priority, Codex is genuinely the faster agent, in both modes, not just the marketed one. That's effectively a tie, maybe a slight edge to Codex, depending on the exact run. Stick with me, because the last 4 tests are where this decision actually flips. Context matters when you're feeding an agent an entire codebase instead of a single file, so here's where the ceilings sit. GPT 5.6, Sol, and Claude Code both offer a 1 million token context window, so that's a tie at the top. Codex trails behind at 400,000 tokens, less than half of what the other two can hold. Where GPT 5.6, Sol separates itself is on output. Neither Codex nor Claude Code has a comparable output figure on record, which means when you need a single response to generate a large amount of code. It supports 128,000 tokens of output per single request, and that's the largest number published across all 3 agents. Next up is deployment and modality, the test that quietly decides whether the rest of this comparison even matters. On deployment and modality, Claude Code pulled clearly ahead once the workload got real. So Claude Code takes deployment and modality, and the scoreboard shifts its way. Here is where GPT 5.6 Sol clearly pulls ahead of the field. Now, here is where Codex clearly pulls ahead of the field. Here is where Claude Code clearly pulls ahead of the field. Pick the one whose single biggest strength matches the job in front of you today. One thing the docs never spell out will quietly cost you if you miss it. If this helped, the next breakdown on the channel goes even deeper.